Roman Reigns kicks off the show and he apparently has an announcement. He talks about not being able to be beaten one-on-one and says ask Seth Rollins, but Seth beat him clean one-on-one at Money in the Bank last year. He says he doesn't care who wins at Great Balls of Fire because at SummerSlam he's the number one contender because this is his yard. Very shit promo. Thankfully, gets interrupted by Samoa Joe. Joe says his name wasn't on the list of people Roman beat because he's never beaten him. He tells Reigns he's the true number one contender, and Reigns says he'll never be Samoa Joe to him, he'll always be just Joe. Joe replies to that garbage with a headbutt. He throws him around outside a bit, and then they get back in the ring and Joe goes to lock on the coquina clutch, but it gets countered and Reigns hits the super shit punch. Back from the break, and it's announced that Joe will take on Reigns later tonight. Jeff and Matt are out to verse Gallows and Anderson. This was a good opening match for Raw, and probably the best match of the night, which isn't a surprise considering the guys in the match. The finish was Matt hitting Gallows with a twist of fate, and Jeff hitting a swanton bomb and getting the pin. Goldust cut another promo and said next week will be the premiere of his movie, Shattered Truth. Elias Sampson is out yet again to play us another song, which this time gets interrupted by Finn Balor, who we haven't seen since Extreme Rules. Balor and Sampson have a sort of a stare-off and Sampson just leaves the ring. Bo Dallas comes out to verse Finn Balor. Bo gets the upper hand at the start, but Balor gets the win with the coup de grace. They really have no idea what to do with Finn. Backstage, Enzo and Cass talk to Kurt Angle about the jumping, saying who they think it is, and Angle says by the end of the night we'll know who attacked them both. Seth Rollins comes out and talks about being the cover athlete for the WWE 2K18 game, and Bray Wyatt comes up on the Titantron. They both talk a bit of trash to each other, and Wyatt starts making his entrance, but as the lights come on just as Wyatt's outside the ring, Seth jumps on him from the turnbuckle. Backstage, Finn Balor is being interviewed about what's next for him, and he says all he sees is the Universal title, and as he's giving his opinions on what he thinks will happen in the match tonight between Joe and Reigns, Elias Sampson attacks him from behind and says don't you ever upstage me again. Finally he's doing something about getting interrupted all these weeks in a row. Akira Tozawa took on TJ Perkins in an OK Cruiserweight match, with Titus being in Akira's corner. During the match, Neville comes out, music and all, just to sit on commentary, and Akira gets the win with a senton bomb off the top rope. R-Truth cuts another one of his trash promos and says he accepts Goldust's invitation for next week, and then he tells him he's going to get got for about the 4th week in a row. Curtis Axel is trying to cheer up and upset Bo Dallas backstage, and The Miz shows up, and he tells them both to join him and be a part of his entourage. He tells them to think about it and walks off. Time for Reigns and Joe's match, and as always with Roman's matches, there are just so many moments where it's just nothing happening, or we're waiting for someone to stand up, and then a super shit punch happens, and it's another minute of nothing. Anyway, during the match we hear a beeping sound, and an ambulance is shown on the Titantron reversing into the building. The back doors open up, and it's Braun Strowman. He lifts his arms up and has a yell, and then Joe locks on the coquina clutch as Reigns was distracted and chokes him out for the win. After the match, Strowman came out and just picked up Reigns and threw him back down. I don't know what it was, but then he picks up a mic and yells that him and Reigns are having an ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire. The Miz has a Miz TV, and his guest is Maurice. He has a giant present in the ring and 2 bears, one holding a sign saying I'm sorry, and the other holding one saying please forgive me. He asks for her forgiveness and gives her the clock he broke, which he's now fixed. Ambrose interrupts and comes to the ring. He goes to charge the Miz, who throws Maurice in front of himself, so Ambrose stops, and in the process, she spills the champagne over herself. Miz charges Ambrose and he moves out of the way, and Miz destroys the clock again. Ambrose clotheslines the Miz out of the ring, and then he gets jumped by 2 bears. They both take their heads off, and it's Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Miz hits Ambrose with the shitbuster, and him and his Care Bears stand tall in the ring. Sheamus and Cesaro had a match with Apollo Crews and Titus O'Neil. I can't even remember it. The finish was Cesaro hitting Crews with an uppercut from the outside, while Crews was on the second rope, and then Sheamus and Cesaro hitting their tag team finish, which is an Irish curse, and Cesaro jumps off the rope to add force on the way down, I guess. The dumbest thing here was that Michael Cole called what Cesaro did illegal, which it wasn't. Cole is so shit that if I talked about all the mistakes and dumb shit he says in episodes, the reviews would be 20 minutes long. Sasha Banks takes on Nia Jax with Alexa Bliss on commentary, and during the match, Emma confronts Bliss at the announcer's table and says, "Wanna walk out on me, huh?" And Bliss pushes her and runs to the ring to try and hide behind Nia. Sasha gets involved, and somehow Emma and Bliss just beat her down. Then Dana and Mickey come out and everyone brawls. Bailey comes out and attacks Alexa and Emma, then all the faces team up on Nia. This whole segment was a mess, and I'm sure I left out some details, but I'll be surprised if you could follow what I said. Kurt Angle comes out for the reveal of who's been jumping Enzo and Cass. He tells them to come out, and once they are out, he tells the Revival and the Big Show to come out too. Angle says the Revival have a solid alibi, and the Big Show says if he wanted to drop them, he'd do it to their face. Corey Graves stands up at the announcer's table with a mic and tells everyone Big Cass was never checked out by medics and that he wrestled despite never being cleared to compete. He then showed footage of Cass setting up the scene and laying down pretending he had been jumped. Graves says you were the one that jumped Enzo, and Cass replied, "You're damn right I did." He goes on about dealing with Enzo in NXT and on Raw and wanting to watch him suffer. He said Enzo holds him back and hit him with a big boot. Raw goes off the air with Cass at the top of the ramp looking at Enzo while Angle tends to him. I told you it'd be him that did it. I give this episode a solid. Well, see you next week for the next Rush Raw review.